Thank you. Applause to everybody.
And thank you, Minna. If it wasn't up to you, this wouldn't be happening. Welcome everyone on our behalf as well. We're so excited, we can't tell you. We haven't really been sleeping in the last several weeks. So we're like kind of between like super like energetic doing something and super excited about this happening. Thank you so much. This is really, really amazing. So why are we here? I guess we have something, each of us, on our hearts, minds. But basically, we're here because we believe that there's something that's not ideal in our world, in our digital world, in the future of the younger generation, in the way that, in the reality, the digital reality that we have created today, and that it can be better. And we're here because we are ready to try to do something about it together. And of course, we wouldn't be here if we didn't start working in collaboration with UNICEF, starting from the UNICEF's assessment tool that they developed together with Diego. And we started, I think Minna maybe already mentioned, around 2 years ago, so it's been a long and wonderful road and collaboration, and now we're here. And we're doing a Talkoot. We call this event a Talkoot because it's really something else. It's not a hackathon, and it's not a jam, and it's not a conference really. It's not an unconference even, but it's a Talkoot. And Talkoot is a Finnish concept about coming together and creating something larger than any individual could create by themselves. And it's creating something that is for a greater good like a bigger, greater good. And participation in Talkoot is voluntary, and everybody does their part of the work. And that's exactly what we're going to be trying to do this weekend here together. And this is our formula. The numbers have been growing and growing, so they're not this yet. But we are over probably around 60 amazing designers, not just any designers, but designers with amazing experience in the children-related areas. And to say here, we're from like pretty many places around the world. It's really fascinating. We were like replying emails at first, like, this is a Finnish event, this is a European event, this is a worldwide event. So it's been an amazing journey like that. And then we have experts in children's rights present from us, from UNICEF and from some other parties. And we have experts in psychology, education, children's development, etc., etc. All that times one amazing Talkoot, something great, hopefully at the end of the weekend. And the goal of our weekend, where we hope to arrive by Sunday, is a minimum lovable product of an online guide that any good designer around the world could use in their in starting to design for children, a digital product for children. So it would be something that's already useful and has children's rights and ethics at its core, at its heart. And that we're going to create tomorrow together.
Okay, welcome also from my part. I'm Jonna, and I've been writing maybe half of you, at least some point. So what we thought that would happen here this weekend? We divided this design thinking into 4 different aspects. And one is the individual. So how to support the children's rights related to well-being and healthy development. And then how to support the social side. So encouraging the self-expression, the creativity and play. Then, oh sorry, I jumped the second one, well, it's the social. Third one is the behavior, and that's the self-expression. And then 4th one is the safety and privacy, and how we actually can ensure that all the digital products would create that kind of experiences. And well, tomorrow we are going to go through more with these, but I give you a hint. You have a name tag, and in the name tag you might have a logo. So we are going to tomorrow work with different kind of topics and different kind of workshop areas, and that tag gives you some kind of hint that what kind of workshop you might be having. I will just go through all of these. And then Minna already mentioned our wonderful sponsors, so I will again say that Efficode, Futurized Reactor, and Elisa have been helping to create this event, and then all the volunteers. And thank you so much for coming. This is what is going to happen today. So we have several talks. First, we will have 3 and a break, and again 3 and another break. But next, I will give the stage to Amaya, who is a children's rights and business specialist at UNICEF. Oh, they mentioned to me that, yeah, this we are going to use today. So Screenio, this URL, means that you can leave comments, questions, feedback during the presentations. So when we have a question time, we can check what is happening in the Screenio, so you can give feedback there, or then you can write your notes and have discussions also later. But this is one option that you can, how you can digitally ask the questions in real time. Then the official hashtags. So there are also, you can see them on the wall, so you don't have to remember them from this slide. But now, welcome, Maya.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much to Elisa for inspiring us to even put this event together, this is definitely not our comfort zone in terms of engaging with the design community. I come from a smaller part within UNICEF that focuses on engaging the business community on children's rights in policies and processes, but that's more often the policy people within a business rather than the design community. But we are nonetheless super thrilled and excited to see how much interest there is in this topic. So I'm going to start off or kick off the weekend talking about children's rights and framing this in the child rights context, as that is, children's rights really is the starting point for everything that we do at UNICEF. And of course, you as designers, I would say that childhood itself is changing as a result of digital technology. Of course, because of the immense opportunities that digital technology brings to children's lives through education, play, creativity, and so forth. But also because, of course, as we know, it magnifies some of the risks that children face in the offline world. Everything from sexual abuse to bullying and so forth. And so what we would really like to benefit from this weekend is really understand how to integrate some of these elements in the design process. As our friends and colleagues at Elisa mentioned, the tools or the guidance that UNICEF developed is really targeted towards policy people within a company and less focused on the design. So we would really like to hear from you over the weekend about how we can improve some of these tools and how we can be speaking to different audiences with the companies and other stakeholders that we engage with. So I think in terms of the lineup of speakers, my topic is most focused on some of the safety and privacy aspects. So I just wanted to, in terms of some of the ethical dilemmas that are facing design communities and companies that are developing these products and services, just highlight some of the headlines that we've seen in the news over the past year. And my colleague Daniel was laughing at this one, as this is obviously a hotly debated topic. But you may have seen in the last week or so the headlines on Apple and shareholder investors making the claim that its screens were addictive for children. Now, while the issue of technology addiction is, of course, very debated, and there are no scientific things proven, we cannot necessarily dispute the fact that many products are designed to keep users' attention for as long as possible, or to keep them going back to their products or services. Or, for example, the issue of YouTube and harmful content. YouTube Kids was created as a safer place for young people to access content. But of course, whether by mistake or whether because bad actors are out there to manipulate the algorithms, children may often happen upon some sort of content that is violent or harmful in nature because it's mimicking popular, children's characters or shows. The issue of Twitter, for example, and hate speech, and the ability or the issue of Twitter being used as a platform to recruit children into radical groups or young people or people generally. The issue of Disney being in the news for how it was collecting or sharing data that was violating children's rights to privacy or monetizing their information. Closer to my and then last but not least, the well-known issue of Facebook and the issue around fake news. So these are all grim headlines and just a handful of different examples, but issues that we at UNICEF and of course many others working in this area are trying to address in terms of their impact on children's rights. And of course, these are some of the grimmer issues, which are the ones that typically might make the headlines. But of course, as we all know, technology enhances children's lives in many ways. So in terms of what we would like to see out of this weekend is, how do we promote child rights by design? And we are by no means technology experts, much less design experts, and look to you. And so as we were talking about this amongst all of us at UNICEF, we were thinking, well, what already exists out there in the way of children's rights and design? And we came up with a number of principles, from our very basic search, and you probably all are more familiar with these terms than us. But for example, the issue of designing for children, or making products or services appealing or interesting or engaging for children. Or the issue of human-centered design, which is about focusing on the user and making that user's experience more enriching, more productive, or more efficient. And then this issue of child-centered design and really making children involved as a participatory process in developing products. Or this idea that we shouldn't only be looking at children's safety in developing products or services targeted towards children, but looking at any online service and ensuring that it's safe for children. And then last but not least, this emerging concept of human rights by design, in really understanding from the beginning of the design process how a service might impact people's individual rights. So I would say that none of these necessarily gets to what we're looking at in terms of child rights by design, but certainly, okay, I don't know where the text is there, but certainly all of them would be involved in what we would call child rights by design. So of course we need to make products engaging and stimulating for children to keep them interested in products and services. Of course, as long as they're taking into account children's safety, children's security, children's privacy. And then moreover, we don't only want to think about children's protection, right? Because we need to think about how a product or service might enhance or enable children's rights overall, recognizing children's right to education, to play, to learn, etc. So let me start off with then, well, what are children's rights? Children's rights are enshrined in the Convention of the Rights of the Child, which is an international convention that was adopted by the UN in 1990, and was brought into force or adopted by essentially every country in the world, save for a couple. And it encompasses 4 different types of rights. So children's survival rights, so what they need as basic elements to survive: water, food, clean air, etc. Their development rights, so their rights to education, to play, to culture, to religion. Their rights to protection from violence or abuse. And then finally, their rights to participate, to access information, their right to freely express their opinions, and to have a say in matters that impact their lives. Now, this convention is largely applicable to governments, but also it recognizes that a number of other actors are also have effects on children, not just their parents or their guardians or their teachers, but also business. And so there's a whole movement now over the last couple of years, that has been looking at how to engage the business community in their responsibility for human rights or children's rights or other different groups. And there's this notion of companies' responsibility to respect rights. And then, of course, the idea that companies should go above and beyond this responsibility to do no harm or to meet its legislative, or to meet its legal obligations in any given jurisdiction, but to think about how it can go above and beyond this do no harm approach and proactively advance children's rights. So for example, rather than just thinking about how to ensure that their products or services are not infringing on the rights of the child, so for example, enabling the transmission of child online sexual abuse material, but how they can make their products or services useful for a child's life, how it might promote their ability to learn, to make connections, and to voice their opinions. So what does this mean then in the digital world? So I described the different areas of rights, and our view is that children's right to protection and children's right to participation should be balanced. And if you focus too much on the need to protect children, to keep them safe online, you may compromise the very essence of the internet and the myriad benefits that they bring to children's rights. And the idea of removing all risks from the internet, not only is that impossible, but psychologists say that it's good for children to be exposed to some level of risk. It's good for their resilience. It's good for their ability to adapt and become normal adults. So we've already mentioned it was mentioned our tools, and our tools we thought were business friendly, and they were divided amongst 6 different areas according to functions within a company. So legal, sales, marketing, product development. And of course, the feedback that we got from Elisa, which is great, as we know we constantly need to improve, is that this was very policy-oriented, very UN language, and not necessarily intuitive for the design process. So the issues within that tool are very much organized by rights. And so I know that we'll be organized in different teams over the course of the weekend, but I just wanted to quickly touch upon some of the issues that at least our tool covers, as these I think will be relevant across the 4 groups over the course of the weekend. So in terms of safety, and again, really relevant to issues pertaining to children's right to protection from violence, abuse, and harm. So there's the issue of child sexual abuse material, which is hugely problematic because now online streaming services are used or cryptocurrencies are used to access material, which makes it harder to track. And then UNICEF generally categorizes some of the issues or safety issues according to the 3 C's. So inappropriate content, so any violent content or adult content, or content that might promote self-harm, whether that's suicide or anorexia, or radicalization or hate speech. The issue of inappropriate contact, so grooming, for example, conduct in terms of bullying or trolling. And then the issue of excessive use, and I won't go into detail as our colleague Daniel will touch upon that tomorrow. But we're all aware of how we're encouraged to keep going back to different products, whether it's that light or that ding or that like, but that we are constantly reminded with different types of encouragements about why and when to go back. Then the issue of commercial engagement, so issues around data collection and privacy and behavioral advertising and the use of stealth advertising. And in the case of children, it may be difficult for them to distinguish, well, what is an advertisement and what is regular content? The issue of pricing and in-app purchasing. So these are all things that are covered in the tool, which we would like to understand better. Well, how do you account for these types of things, perhaps, in the design process? And then education. We all know that children learn a ton. This has completely changed the way people and young people are able to access information, and whether it's by going online to do their homework or accessing videos or even learning through games. There's a huge amount of education happening online. And I believe we have other speakers who are getting to this topic. And then last but not least, participation. And this is something that we're really trying to promote more and more as UNICEF, is that online children have the ability to access information from no matter where they are in the world like never before, access information about jobs, access information about their health, access information or participate in different like-minded communities. There's also the opportunity to voice their opinion Although research shows that while many children are aware of the ability to participate in online civic engagement, they're not necessarily sure how to do that online. So this is something that young people are not necessarily taking advantage of. So how do we encourage them to participate and try to improve the communities around them through online means? So those are the four general areas with which we view some of the both risks and opportunities children face in the online world. And I guess, from our point of view, we would really like to understand better, well, what structure or format works best in terms of our tools to help inform the design process, or which business functions or roles need to be involved. Again, we are very much focused on the policy side, but how do we involve sales and marketing, for example, as well as designers or engineers? And then lastly, for us to better understand the design process itself and how we might account for this in some of the guidance or advocacy that we do with companies. A team of us will be around for the weekend, and I think we have a couple of minutes for questions if you have any, but we have a number of UNICEF people with us over the weekend, and I believe integrated into all four of the groups who are on hand to talk about child rights or how UNICEF deals with some of these issues. Thank you.
So are there any questions that you have?
I have one here.
Yeah, sure. So the question is, what currency would model respectful business model, since profit from money seems to endanger children's rights? How should we as ethical designers connect to commercial product developers? What language should we develop? 3 questions maybe.
Can you review that question?
Of course.
Yeah, good luck. Maybe first ask it again.
Maybe we should group these questions again, but I mean, I think this is, we of course understand, some of the issues behind why the business model is as it is. One of the typical responses we get from companies is that, we need to do data collection or we need to do advertising because we can't provide free content, right? So we understand that we have to think about child rights by design elements vis-a-vis a business model that's there for profit. But unfortunately, I don't have any answers, and I hope this is something that we can try and tackle over the course of the week. Or of course, anyone has any other questions.
Thank you, Maya. Can I ask another kind of business-related question then? You mentioned you're from the business team. Does that mean that charges for this service? I imagine, and there are all sorts of ethics within that as well. If you can just explain your position as
Sure. Yeah. Sorry if that wasn't clear. So I'm working on child rights in terms of what it should do to respect children's rights. So we are not charging business, we don't do consulting, but we do advocacy. And as part of that advocacy, it's defining what child rights responsibilities might mean for any particular industry. And we've started with was kind enough to review this tool in depth. We actually co-created this tool with Lego. So we had developed some guidelines a couple of years ago on how to actually integrate that into a business. But no, we don't sell our services. We're not a consultancy, but we're really in the business of advocacy and making the child rights agenda relevant for business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
More questions? Thank you, Maya.
And Talkoot, PhD. Shuli specializes in user research, assessment, strategy, and design of interactive environments for children. And Shuli came to us room, all the Israel.
Not that fun.
Just
The
one-
weather is very different though.
just
The hours. Yeah. Okay.
Screen.io/demos. Please, any interesting thoughts, notes, questions, note them there, and we'll see them on the screen.
When I heard about this initiative, I thought it's amazing that somebody actually does this, and it's very much needed. So my name is Shuli Gilutz. I'm a user experience researcher specializing in kids' digital environments at the I'd really like to talk today about privacy by design, which is a general concept, and more specifically in how it applies to children's design. Before I start, I'm sitting in front of designers, so I want to apologize, but not really. This is on, so this, it's not that elegant maybe, but it really reminds us that for children, for kids, for teens. And their sense of aesthetics, of almost anything else, is different than ours. And we have to get into their shoes and into their minds in order to design for them. So this font, we can't ignore that. Okay? This is not whatever presentation, but kids love it. So that's really what we have to think about. We really have to think about designing for children. So let's talk privacy by design. The actual idea of privacy developed in the 1990s in Canada. It's an engineering process of thinking about how to make products that include privacy ahead of time, rather than thinking about it after the safety and the system design. So one example, if you're designing, there are special protocols they have developed where a person can actually communicate and find out, where they are located. But the system doesn't actually disclose the privacy issue of me being located at this specific spot. So there's specific protocols that can protect that information. And the idea in privacy by design is responsibility. And we have to think about our users and protect them ahead of time. It's not something I have to choose on my phone and say, oh, don't give this company all my notes. That's why I have to think about it. And so basically, privacy by design has been pretty much accepted worldwide. In 2010, had commissioners of privacy worldwide. They had a big conference and said that this is a critical issue that should be addressed in all the development. In 2012, the U.S. government said this is really important, including an idea for how to do that. And actually, Europe, which hasn't been, they haven't addressed this formally yet, has just come out with a for any system developed to have privacy by design within the system. I'm not talking about children, I'm talking any system. And there's actually going to be an officer of privacy. So this is actually a lead to it. Of course, we're thinking of ethics. We're not forcing anybody. But yeah, we should be. Because the issue of business model, money, all that issue, all those questions always come up, and especially. So privacy by design is really extreme user-centered design. So I'm happy you brought up those topics. So we're thinking about user-centered empathy and designing with empathy, but here we're actually adding responsibility. So we're not only empathizing with the users, we're really taking responsibility and make it safe. So the first idea, be proactive. Head about fixing data that has been leaked. This is about not letting the data be private data there at all. Okay, so you have to work on it ahead of time. The second, the default. Finally, it's end-to-end to the life cycle. So when you're developing something, you think about the database, you think about the product that's going to be built, how it's going to be used. Go 5 years after I've left the program. Where's who? Can it be removed? And actually, UNICEF has this amazing project, and I met someone here who's working on it. The I rights, where children talk. When you're 5 or 7 or 12 or 15, you post very silly things that maybe when you're 21 and you're looking for a job, you spend that data. It's a full life cycle. You have to plan for that ahead of time, not afterwards. And finally, visibility and transparency. Opening. Everything you do, you should be able to know where this data is going. What is this data? What do you think all about? And the answer is everything. But basically, you should be able to know that too. Okay. Social media has been one of the key issues when we talk about privacy by design for kids. The COPA law in the U.S. prevents kids under 13 using social media, or actually even opening an email account. This happens. It's not what happens because kids do use social media to blame, but Facebook's children just having a mark and writing a birthday obviously doesn't work. And they can tell very easily if their users are 8. It's very easy to see, yay, go 4th grade on the webpage. You're probably not 14 or 15. So what about all the social websites that aren't for kids? Instagram, Snapchat, it isn't. But digital natives, the problem with this discussion is we have to differentiate the generational discussion that each generation says about the next generation. Oh my God, they're not like us and so forth. We have to put that aside, but also look at the unique affordances of this generation. They really are unique. And about electricity. So you don't come into this room and say, wow, there's electricity. No, okay. There's a problem. And that's how kids view connectivity to the internet. So it's just a different state of mind. But they have no clue of any technical thing or what to do with it. So that's what and I'll give you an example. So I can't just make thing about it, but I want you to make up a username, and please don't videotape your face. They looked at me like, of course, why would we want to videotape our face? Nobody even does that. It's dangerous. And I thought, it's pretty amazing. I mean, these are two screen captures from my kids. One of some of their favorite YouTubers. She likes to play with Lego friends and creates all the things. And all you see from this nice Australian woman are her two hands. That's it. And my daughter watches the video. Then because at Minecraft, also you see gameplay and you hear a voiceover. So they're familiar with it. They don't want their friends in school to see their face. So they're really that where kids say, please stop. So they know, they understand. But on the other hand, they're clueless technically, right? Born. Now we have all this new stuff coming on, which we don't know how to address. So for example, we got Google Home a few weeks ago, and we've been trying it out in our household, and I'm already doing some research on it, which is really cool. A lot of these apps don't really work in Israel, so like Google Play doesn't work and other stuff. What's my favorite color? And Google said, I don't know what your favorite color is, but I'm a good learner. If you tell me, I'll remember. Yeah. So he said green and blue. And Google said, okay. And then 5 minutes afterwards, my son said, so what's my favorite color? And Google said, you told me your favorite color is green and blue. My son was so happy. Okay. And then my son said, so what's my dog's name? And I said, whoa. And something in me just jumped. I'm like, he looked at me, what's the problem? I said, I don't know. That question didn't feel right. Jon Stewart, if you guys know from the Daily Show in the U.S., interviewed Bill Gates, and he was sitting in front of his dog's name. It's do they even know him? Like, he's a kid, he's my son. We created a different Google account for this. This wasn't my private account. People should be able to know this is new technology. It's not even visual. We don't know where this information is going and what's happening. The child make data share choices. Ready? Who? Can we anonymize data? Where's the data? We're getting you a different kind of health insurance. Is that really going to be the case? Is the child aware? And I'm not trying to be a big brother over here. And like it was said before, there are great things that by design. I'm going to talk about a few examples. Throughout the development life so these are the four topics we talked about. And I want to give you some examples from kids' digital literacy. help both, this is for teachers and parents, and again for kids out there for free. This is Free Pop, another very popular kids educational app worldwide. And between the information in the database dot. So it's all by the school, and that way you don't have to know which child did what. It's more of a class film. They really wanted it, but they couldn't allow for kids to upload stuff like that internationally without being. Okay, a program for schools by Wikipedia. It's an Israeli company, and when you're designing images for each child, only the teacher has access. Transparency issue. And I have to say, I think that's where most of our work is going to be in, because I couldn't find a lot of good examples. But this is it's visible for them. Early elementary school, tweens, and teens. Each group is mostly different. They have different needs. And if we're doing user-centered design, we have to address design for 5 age groups. And not only that, they have to look into culture, different educational systems. Do they organize this event about the song here in Finland, for example, which is very private and safe and family affair. In other countries, make get all you need from government and from hospitals. If you don't show you've done user testing in real situations,
Interesting. So, I'm not expecting you to
gets on the stage and says, there it is. And put them together. Know about me more than probably I know about myself. But there's now that monitor kids from the day they're born or from the pregnancy. About that. And that can affect, I think, so many things. So we really,
design effect, should we be talking about the grade of security? I'm talking about this not as an expert in the tech side of things. when your professor's standing up saying they know everything about you, he's talking about a higher level than Google, so he's talking about governments and stuff like that, or is he talking about both anyway? Because if it's both anyway, then it's a useless endeavor.
Well,
It's
I wouldn't say it's useless. I think there's a lot that can be done. A lot can be done. And even the right to be forgotten, which is one of the rights kids talk about in I rights. That means that before they're 18, they can delete stuff they posted online. That's a big difference. I mean, that will make a big difference for them. It's not there yet, but we can do it. All these other things that will force companies to differentiate personal information from databases. We had it.
Actually, it's data phones. So they actually started to look at use big data analysis to see what success events were